This weekend was filled with a lot of baseball news, a little bit of Tigers news, and a lot of questions that still are left to be answered. All today on Locked On Tigers.
You are Locked On Tigers, your daily Detroit Tigers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another edition of Locked On Tigers. I'm, of course, your host, Scott Bentley. Today is Monday, January 20th, 2025. Thank you so much for making Locked On Tigers your first listen every single day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts, including YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. From the first whistle to the final drive, FanDuel makes the NFL playoffs even more exciting. Right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win your first bet. That's FanDuel.com to get started. Welcome in, everybody. Hope you all had a fantastic weekend. If you are a Detroit sports fan, then maybe you did not have a fantastic weekend. Yeah, rough. If we have time at the end, we'll talk about that a little bit more. Just rough. We're going to start off with some baseball news, just kind of around the league. A lot of that being centered toward the Los Angeles Dodgers. So we'll talk about that whole situation here. At the beginning of the show, we're going to talk about some comments Tarik Skubal made about the possibility of a long-term extension. We're going to talk about a couple of minor league signings the Tigers did actually make. I know they're minor league signings. At any time I ever talk about minor league signings the Tigers make, everybody just goes, we don't care. We want, big name free agent here. But we are going to talk about them regardless. And like I said, at the end, we'll kind of just jump around talking about the city and whatnot. So to start off, Roki Sasaki is a Los Angeles Dodger. And I had mentioned last week multiple times that I thought he was going to be a Dodger, and I kind of just assumed that he was going to end up in LA, and that the finalists were, the Padres and the Blue Jays and whatnot, but like the writing was kind of on the wall. And I shared that my biggest frustration in regards to the whole situation has the reaction from fans across the league was very interesting to me because it feels like this dude is already hated among baseball fans, and he hasn't even thrown a pitch yet. He hasn't even thrown a single pitch in a Dodgers uniform. He hasn't thrown a single pitch on a major league mound yet. And it already feels like everybody is just against him because he picked the Dodgers. And like, it's just the fact that his agent and his team were telling people that, and were telling the media that he didn't want a big market team and that smaller market teams were in play, and maybe a middle market team is more of the way he wants to go and whatnot. That is the only part of this whole thing that frustrates me. This was never going to be a financial battle, right? This was because he's an international free agent. This was never going to be a bidding war. So I'm not going to get mad at someone for just they just dumped so much money into him. Like, of course he was going to pick there. That was not this situation, right? I know a lot of people are talking about the Dodgers payroll and whether baseball needs a salary cap and whatnot. And maybe one day we'll have kind of a bigger picture conversation about that. If we have time before the season starts, but this was not a part of that conversation as much. Right? This is, I understand he's joining a team that is full of a lot of stars, and those stars are able to be obtained by spending a lot of money. But in a vacuum, right, his salary is going to be $8 million, or he signed for $8 million. It's just the fact that the media even pretended like he was going to go anywhere else that frustrates me. And I'm not sure whether that's his fault or whether that's the media's fault. I really don't know, and I really don't care. But that is the only part of this situation that bothers me. It's like, why did we even do like the dance? Why did we even play the game? If like, why even do that? Again, it wasn't a bidding war. It's not like he was, oh, like, if we do this, we're going to get more money out of him. No, international free agent budget. So, whatever. The Padres get absolutely screwed. I really feel bad for the Padres faithful there, the Friar faithful, because they were shedding international free agent signings in order to, and like making trades. The Blue Jays as well were making trades in order to bring in more international free agent money and not signing some international free agents that they were planning on signing because they wanted to be able to offer as much money as possible to Sasaki. And so then they kind of had to deal with the ripple effect of that. The Padres still got their top two guys. It sounds like they're still pretty happy with it and fine with how everything played out. The Blue Jays with the Miles Straw deal, I'm not really sure what the future of Miles Straw with Toronto is going to be, but just this whole thing was just this like big hoopla, and it was like this big circus, and ended up just being what we all knew it was going to be anyway at the very beginning. And that's the only frustrating part to me. Like, why did we even have hope? Not even we specifically, as in like Tigers fans, just like the field, like all 29 other teams. Well, why did we even, whatever. Tanner Scott also signs with the Blue Jays, with the Dodgers rather. We can have I have a lot of opinions on like salary cap and whatnot that we won't get into today, but if those conversations heat up, we can get way more in depth on this. It is going to become a much more interesting conversation if the Dodgers do just make this season beyond uninteresting because they're just so much better than everybody else. But if they're not, then baseball's not going to care. And that is something that we all have to realize. If the Dodgers don't win the World Series, if the Dodgers don't win the NL West, right, by some miracle, right? Like if they aren't this dominant, just overpowering team, then baseball is not going to be like, oh, well, we got to fix that. Fix what? They're spending a lot of money and losing. Now they're going to be really good and they're going to compete for a World Series. So we'll see what happens. But that is the rich get richer. Yeah, like I said, if down the road in the offseason, if we have some more free time and if the offseason continues to move slower and slower and as slowly as it has, then maybe we can have a more in-depth conversation about all of that and the financials and the salary cap and floor and all that. Let's get to some Tigers news. All right. Tarik Skubal says that he is going to keep private the conversations and the discussions between him and the Tigers and a long-term extension. We'll talk about the future of Tarik Skubal with the Detroit Tigers right after this. Got to talk to y'all today about our friends over at FanDuel. From the first whistle to the final drive, FanDuel makes the NFL playoffs even more exciting. Right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win your first bet. That's $300 to keep the action going. The FanDuel app is easy to navigate. There's a variety of bets to keep every game exciting. Plus, when you win, you get paid instantly. There's no waiting around for your winnings. Whether you're betting on your favorite team or just looking to add some extra excitement to the playoffs, FanDuel has you covered. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today, and you'll get started with $300 in bonus bets. That's FanDuel.com. Make this playoff season unforgettable with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. All right, everybody, welcome back here. Segment 2, Locked On Tigers. Appreciate y'all for tuning in. As always, making us your first listen every single day. Shots to the everydayers that do tune in every day. We will, of course, be back on Wednesday as we keep the off-season train rolling. And then once we get into February, and we're talking about pitchers and catchers reporting, we go back to 5 episodes a week, a couple weeks into February. Then, it's right around the corner. But still a lot of questions to be answered. Still a lot of questions to be answered about the Tigers off-season. Are they going to sign Bregman? Are they going to go after, Santander? Is there more moves to come, or is this going to be how the team looks come opening day? And I think that one of the kind of sleeping giants in the fan base, and I only say that because I think it's going to uptick in aggressiveness and in the amount that people talk about it over the next calendar year. But the Tarik Skubal contract extension story, that is only going to get hotter and hotter as time progresses. And right now, it's kind of a, you know what, try and get it done. But if not, like he's under contract for 2 more years, or he's under team control, I should say, for 2 more years. We'll see what happens, but you're going to have to pay him eventually. And you can only kick the can down the road for so long. So he was asked over the weekend just about long-term extension, whether that was on the table, whether conversations were ongoing, right? Was that something that was actively being talked about? Just to give the fan base somewhat of a gauge of where the team and him stand. And he basically gave him nothing, which he should. That is the professional and correct thing to do. I'm sure Boris has told him, do not say anything. But he has said that he's going to keep it private. The big talking points that have been thrown out there involving Skubal's extension is price tag. I've seen some people even talk about him being the first $400 million contract pitcher. And if that's the case, then I think you can pretty much kiss him goodbye. And that breaks my heart. I don't want that to be true. But if Boris is legitimately looking for 400 mil, I would be flabbergasted. And that's a word I don't pull out too often. All right. But I would be genuinely stunned if the Detroit Tigers organization and the Detroit Tigers ownership was going to shovel over 400 mil to one specific player. Now, I've been wrong plenty in my life, and I will be wrong plenty again. I would love to be wrong about this. I would love Tarik Skubal to be a Tiger for the rest of his career. But I will tell you right now, and this is, man, this blows. But I'm always gonna be as honest as possible with you all. Right now, I am preparing for the future of the Tigers in a world and in a universe where Tarik Skubal does not get an extension done with this team. I want them to get an extension done very badly. If my last name was Harris instead of Bentley, I would be doing everything in my power to get him extended long term. And I'm sure Scott Harris would like the best pitcher in baseball on his team for a long time. At the end of the day, this is going to come down to how much Boris and Tarik want contract-wise and how much Illich is going to be willing to set aside for one player that plays once every 5 days. Right? It's a lot easier of a conversation to have the 300 mil plus contract conversation for a guy that plays 162. It's a lot harder for owners to shovel over that kind of money with a guy that plays 1 to 2 times a week. And that's like that's not my opinion. That's a historically proven thing, right? And so I really am of the belief today that he's going to pitch here the next 2 seasons until his team control is up. And then he is going to be a free agent and probably sign elsewhere. And again, I hope I am wrong. I hope the Tigers do pay him what he is very much worth. And I hope that he is a Tiger, again, for the rest of his prime, if not the rest of his career. But from where I'm sitting, that's where I'm at. And that's something that I have honestly, for being super transparent, started accepting, I don't know, halfway through last season. was like, this dude's going to win Cy Young. Okay, we knew that by like May or June. This dude's going to win Cy Young. He's going to be in his late 20s, a lefty that can hit 100, has his arm problems hopefully behind him, and is maybe the best pitcher on the planet. That's going to cost a lot of money. Need to be proven otherwise by this organization, which is kind of disappointing. Kind of is probably not even the right word. It is disappointing that as a fan base, we are so accustomed to this organization just saying, you know what, or not saying, well, maybe telling us indirectly that they're not going to spend money, right? They've obviously, ownership is never going to come out and just be like, we're not going to spend more than X amount of dollars. But like, actions speak louder than words. And the last almost decade now, 8 years, hasn't been a lot of that. I would love to be wrong. But that's quote came out over the weekend, and that's how I feel about the future of Tarik Skubal, which is for the 5th time. I hope I'm wrong. I hope I'm wrong. I hope I'm wrong. Let's talk about some moves the Tigers did make over the weekend. Signed a couple of minor league players. Then we'll talk about some other like old friend alerts going around baseball and more. We will do that right after this. Got to talk to y'all today about our friends over at Rocket Money. Did Rocket Money help you find any subscriptions you forgot about or that you were paying for twice? That definitely happened to me. I had a few subscriptions that I didn't even realize I was still paying for, and Rocket Money made it so easy to track them all down. It's like having a personal assistant for your finances. Rocket Money is a personal finance app that helps you find and cancel your unwanted subscriptions, monitors your spending, and helps you lower your bills so you can grow your savings. It brings everything together in one place, whether it's subscriptions, your spending habits, or even the goals you want to hit this year. Rocket Money has over 5 million users and has saved a total of $500 million in canceled subscriptions, saving members up to $740 a year when using all of the app's premium features. For me, one of the best features, again, is the subscription tracker. I've used it to cancel services I wasn't using anymore, and I've already saved a ton. Plus, with their goals feature, I've been able to automatically set aside money for my future. There's no more stressing about budgeting every month with Rocket Money, so cancel your unwanted subscriptions and reach your financial goals faster with Rocket Money. Go to rocketmoney.com/lockedon today. That's rocketmoney.com/lockedon, rocketmoney.com/lockedon. All right, everybody, welcome back here. Third and final segment, Locked On Tigers. Appreciate y'all for tuning in as always. Talking about some moves the Tigers actually did make over the weekend. They signed a guy that went viral, which is a really fascinating story. So Kenny Surwa, I believe is the pronunciation, is a 27-year-old right-handed pitcher that has been pitching in independent league baseball. Okay, non-affiliated, not full professional, right? Semi-pro at the highest levels of indie ball, and had an ERA over 4 in indie ball in his most recent stint there, right? His most recent season. I don't know what his numbers are over across like all of his independent ball career. I have no clue. Numbers are hard to find, but his most recent stint in indie ball, he had an ERA of 4.22. He went viral because he threw the fastest, I should say, recorded knuckleball ever. Now, most knuckleballs are very slow. You're talking, high 60s back in the day, maybe a little bit more in the modern era, like low 70s, right? But you're talking about a slow pitch, no spin. It's slow for a reason. You remember R.A. Dickey when he was winning the Cy Young and was on top of the world and whatnot and took over New York there. That's like the most recent prominent knuckleballer that the league has had. There were a few more, in the 2000s, but that's been a a breed that has really dwindled lately. And this past season, the Padres had a knuckleballer. Wasn't great, but like had a knuckleballer, and that alone, people were freaking out. And they're like, "Oh my goodness, knuckleballers are coming back! Like this is so cool." But there was one, right? Like they really are a dying breed, and is, you know, a type of pitcher that is dwindling. And then you see this dude throw the hardest one ever recorded, like true knuckleball, right? And it's 88.5 miles an hour. And I guess he averages around 86 or 87 on a consistent basis. He also has two different knuckleballs. Which some people do that with curveballs in today's day and age, right? You have like the power curve and then like the loopy curve. That's kind of what he's doing here. He has a knuckleball that can get into the upper 80s, and then he also has a slower knuckleball that's almost 10 miles an hour slower, and presumably has some more movement on it. Really fascinating, and went super viral in like the online baseball community. A lot of, Pitching Ninja was all over it. A lot of people talking about him. And then the next thing you know, the Tigers signed him to a minor league contract. So kind of cool just to like be in the news for that. Like, oh yeah, that guy that went viral, like the Tigers signed him. Like, that's kind of cool. It doesn't really mean anything. He's a 27-year-old that had an ERA over 4 in indie ball. The odds of him making the majors and being like a productive major league pitcher are very, very slim. I'm not here to like lie to you and tell you that this dude's going to be incredible. He's going to be a 27-year-old in the low levels of the minors. But he's got stuff that dances, right? The knuckleballs move a lot. He has a fastball that can get into the mid-90s as well. And the Tigers' pitching development system has been fantastic in the Harris era and in the Fetter era. And it is exciting. And like, obviously he's not going to work with Fetter anytime soon, but organization-wide, top to bottom, the pitching development has taken such big strides that it's just cool to have a guy that just has stuff, right? Just stuff. Hasn't been able to put it together. Wasn't even fully pro, right? But now is going to be a pro baseball player and is going to get an opportunity with an organization that very quickly has put together a really solid track record of developing starting pitching and developing pitching in general. So congratulations to him, man. That is just so cool. Even if he never makes it to like even the upper levels of the minors or the majors, to put in the amount of work I'm sure he has, and to get a major league contract to make this your full-time, job and be a professional, has to just be the coolest feeling in the world. So no matter what happens from here on out, tip of the cap to Kenny. And obviously we're over here in Detroit, we're all rooting for you. We all are hoping that he can become the next big thing, and that this development team can put him on the right track to success. So we'll keep an eye on him. It'll be kind of a fun story to watch this year in the Tigers organization. Tigers also signed Tomas Nido, catcher, minor league deal. Did actually appear for a few Mud Hens games this past season. I don't think he only played in like 3, 5, 7. It was single-digit amount of games for the Mud Hens. I believe was a Cub, was cut. Tigers signed him as minor league catching depth. Has been a free agent technically all of this winter. Tigers bring him back. No big deal. He's just going to be more catching depth for the organization, which is always important. So welcome back to him. That's really it for like pressing Tigers news. Harold Castro's back in not in Major League Baseball, but back to signed to a Major League Baseball organization. He went out of the country last year and is now, he got a minor league deal with the Royals. So that's kind of cool, hitting Harold back in the division. Hopefully he doesn't hit, inevitable. He'll just hit a walk-off against us at some point this year. Keston Hiura, who the Tigers had briefly for a few months last year, signed with the Colorado Rockies. Hopefully he can get to the majors, because I think he could really kind of crush in Coors. But that'll be interesting. That organization is, you want to talk about organizations that are kind of a disaster, the Rockies. Sheesh. I think that's it. Rough weekend for Detroit sports fans. Yeah, it was a rough one. The Lions lose in just embarrassing fashion. The greatest season in franchise history, and they win 0 playoff games. Super, super underwhelming there. The Tigers, we talked about that obviously all show. That's not even what I meant to say there. The Pistons, rather, lose to the Phoenix Suns on Saturday. The Red Wings get clobbered in both games they play this weekend, 4-1 and 5-1. 9-2 in the aggregate. Just absolutely brutal rather. It's funny, it was making the rounds on Saturday. The last time that the Pistons, the Red Wings, and the Lions all won on the same day was 2000. And like the Pistons beat the Supersonics that don't even exist anymore, right? And like all this, and they were like, oh, like let's recreate it. And then all 3 of them lost on Saturday, and then the Wings played again on Sunday and got clobbered again. So it was a rough one, but all we have in this world is hope. Super sad ending here. Yeah, whatever. I have faith. The Pistons are having a great year. That's really fun. The Wings have been winning a lot lately. We'll see if they can turn it around. The Lions are young. Their window is not closed after this loss. They have, that they will have future seasons where they will have opportunities to make a run. But very, very disappointing weekend, no less, for the Detroit fandom, Detroit faithful here. So hopefully better times ahead. And either way, I'll be here. Appreciate y'all for tuning in. Thanks for making Locked On Tigers your first listen every single day. Shout out to everydayers that do tune in every day. And we will, of course, be back on Wednesday. Peace and love. Going to therapy's dope. I'll catch y'all then, baby. Go Tigers.